Hi, welcome to Pass or Play. End of the Road, currently streaming on Netflix, starring Queen Latifah, Chris Ludacris Briggs, and Bo Bridges. All right. So just to start off, this movie's about a family: Queen Latifah, Brenda, um, Reggie, Ludacris, and the two children, Kelly and Cameron. Brenda, husband dies of cancer. She is an ER nurse, but she can't afford to keep the mortgage and pay everything. So she sells the house and takes a road trip with her brother Reggie and her two children to move back home to Texas with her mom. The road trip is expected to take about 3 days before they get there. They're driving while while their belongings is being driven in another truck. And on the trip, they end up making a stop to spend the night before continuing on to Texas, and they end up being caught in this war between drug cartel money and someone getting killed, and making sure that the drug cartel receives the money in this kind of cross country speed chase. All right. So, what I liked about the movie is I will say that I like the cast. I think everybody does a good job. I think all the performances are good. I really like the pacing. It's an hour and a half. It's really quick. Everything makes sense. I mean, everything makes sense for the most part. I think some characters make choices that I wouldn't necessarily have made, but I think it depends on you as a person, right? Or maybe who you are as a person. I think in films where sometimes it's like an African American film or an African American led film. Especially if it's like a horror movie or thriller, like African Americans, they always be like, are these logical choices? Are these things that people would do? For example, if you were in a horror movie, you wouldn't even go in the bathroom and call Candyman's name, or you wouldn't even call Bloody Mary's name. If you live by yourself and you were maybe coming in the front door and you hear dishes and different things making noises, you wouldn't even go in the apartment. You would just leave out. And there's some decisions in this movie that Brenda makes. She is an ER nurse. Like I said earlier, they're staying at this hotel overnight, and they hear a commotion and a gunshot in the room next door, and she goes in and checks to see, is there somebody that shot? Are they okay? Now again, disclaimer, she is an ER nurse, so that's something she sees every day. She goes in the door and she sees that the guy has been shot. She grabs a towel and puts it against his neck to stop the blood and put pressure on the wound. And she asks Reggie to go into the bathroom and get more towels so she can keep putting more pressure and also to soak up the blood. He ends up finding this bag of money, and he takes the bag of money without even saying anything to her. And that's really where the movie begins. Now, he follows her. If she hadn't made a decision to go into the room, you know, he wouldn't have even gone after her. And I can say honestly, after seeing this movie, I feel like Brenda is like in this movie, Brenda is really unlucky, but a lot of them make choices, like makes kind of bad choices that lead to consequences with questionable people. Even though in this there's another scene too where Kelly, Queen Latifah's daughter in the film, she gets hit on by these two Caucasian guys at a truck stop, and she gives them the middle finger, gets in the car and drive off. They end up chasing after them. They also end up having a gun in the car, but they end up blocking the whole family from driving on, asking that Queen Latifah apologize, for endangering white lives and mean it, and she does it because she doesn't want her fam, she's trying to protect her fam. And Reggie, he came on the trip high, he brought weed. The brothers, little Cameron, the son, was like, I can call the cops. They was like, no, don't call the cops. What's the point in calling the cops? Because Reggie over here getting high. Reggie also, and and also too, in the beginning, I didn't care for. I mean, now the father had just passed away from cancer 3 months ago. Of course, Brenda's there, Reggie's there, so they're the kids are kind of taking it out on them because they're there to kind of have their emotions be checked out on. But you can tell that Brenda's doing the best that she can, but her kids are a little disrespectful. They just kind of doing stuff that's just like rude. Where like if it was my mama, she would have smacked me in the mouth. But I think she's being considerate that their father just died. But later in the film too, when there was later in the film where Cameron gets abducted, because when he said he had to go to the bathroom, he tells Brenda, I don't need Reggie to go with me. I don't need a chaperone. And then that's when he gets abducted. There's also another scene where when Brenda realizes they have the money, they end up getting a call from the drug cartel saying you need to give us our money. She puts the money into this truck stop, one of the hotel rooms in the closet, and then the money ends up getting stolen. She ends up chasing this maid who steals the money, and she ends up getting in this confrontation where she ends up getting caught up with more Caucasian people, where they talk like this and they got bonfires and they having sex out in the middle of the desert on mattresses, and they got shotguns, and it was just, I mean, like, even though that's one of the best parts of the movie because Brenda really rises to the occasion. That whole scene is all believable. She's fighting. She's trying to save the life of her son, but she just keeps, whether it's like, I feel like, again, she's like the most unluckiest person, but she got 9 lives. I've never. It's If this was a horror film, I'm not sure if she would be dead. Maybe she would be alive. I'm not even really sure. Like, this is like a thriller slash kind of action film, but if this was a horror film, I'm not sure if she would make it because she'd be making all the wrong decisions. If this was Final Destination, I don't think, I don't think she would make it. But anyway, yeah, the scene where she goes after the maid with who steals a bag of money and ends up fighting all the dudes and the ladies there. That's a really cool scene. But it's like one bad decision ripples into another. She ends up, when she gets the money, she goes back to where Mr. Nash, who's the head of this drug cartel, tells her to go, and a dog ends up being in the road, and she ends up crashing her car into like a tree or a bush, and then she has to walk like 1.8 miles to get to the location to get her son. And then her daughter and Reggie, they end up trusting the wrong person who they think is trying to help them but ends up hurting them, who ends up being the actual drug cartel person. They do escape, and that's a really cool scene. I think as far as how the family reacts to when they are in danger, is all those things are great. They're not, they're all fighters. They help each other. In that sense, they're like a real family, and I really appreciated that portrayal of how that is. Now, as far as the scenes, with like these kind of ignorant microaggression bias, kind of ignorant tropes. I wouldn't even say, I don't mean necessarily tropes, but just the scenes of how they deal with those types of men and women. I do like that. That's all realistic. It's just that some of the decisions that Brenda makes, that Reggie makes, they're supposed to be the adults and they're just not necessarily making the best decision. Yes, she cares about her kids. Yes, she loves, her brother, her kids, but and she's willing to do anything to keep them safe. But at the same point, she's also making decisions that keeps putting them in danger. And in some cases, it makes the situations worse. But it's And when they call the lady Crazy Martha Stewart, that's funny. When they end up turning the tables on the actual Mr. Nash, all that's great. The ending where it turns out that they end up actually do getting something out of it at the end. That was great. I thought that was great. And the family like, what are we gonna do? Who we gonna give it to? It's like, keep yeah, you they actually earn it. And and honestly, what happens to the actual quote unquote villains of the film, that kind of ending is really great, really great. I don't know if I've ever seen Bo Bridges play necessarily the bad guy, but if this might be the first film I could have. I think usually he doesn't necessarily play that kind of a role, and I think he plays it perfectly. But you can kind of see that coming. A lot of you can kind of this movie is predictable in some cases too, but it's still a good ride. Other than those kind of choices that I don't think necessarily other people would necessarily make. Everything else is good. The tone, the pacing, it begins strong, it ends strong. If you ask me, it's over really quick. It's a good hour and a half. So I would tell you, with you got monkeypox, you have COVID. If you want to stay home and you don't want to necessarily go to the theater because you're concerned with those things, I would say, yes, spend your time and watch End of the Road. It's a play for me. I think it does what it's supposed to, and I think it's a great watch. There's more things that I like than dislike. I wouldn't make some of the decisions that she makes, but I think she rises to the occasion. The family rises to the occasion when they need to help each other and have each other's back. And I think, as a family, that's all you want. And I think that all that's portrayed very well. The directing's great too. So yeah, it's a play for me. At the end of the day, it's a play. I would say watch this. Queen Latifah is also the executive producer. She also was in that movie a couple months ago with Adam Sandler, Hustle. So she's doing pretty. She's been doing some good stuff this year, at least as far as the Netflix stuff. If you ask me, I still haven't seen The Equalizer, but I've heard different things about it. But I know they said that the fighting wasn't. Some people said that the fighting wasn't necessarily believable, at least in the first season of The Equalizer. But in this scene, in this movie, what she does is very believable. It doesn't even look like she may have even had like a stunt double or anything. It looks like it was all her. Um, and side note too, I saw that the director for this film, she directed The Walking Dead, and ironically to me a little bit, the wig that they use for Queen Latifah's hair is kind of the ones that they use for Michonne on The Walking Dead. It looks like it could have been done by the same maybe team or something like that. So I thought that was very rando, but they look kind of similar to an extent. Even though Michonne's is like a lot darker, because she's like out in the, more in the wild. She's not in a kind of a dystopian, backdrop, but this is like modern day, but they're still out in the desert and all the dust and wind blowing all that stuff. But anyway, this is a good watch. Play. Thank you. If you like this, please like, comment below. Would you make these decisions that Brenda makes or Reggie makes or the kids make? What do you think? And please subscribe. Bye.